Welcome back to Divided We Fail. Today, we are diving into the 2024 election results, not just as reactions, but as deep analysis as to how these outcomes are reshaping America's political landscape. And we brought in a friend to help us make sense of it all. We will be joined by Jeff Kronk Jr. He hosts Bearded Chats on Facebook, and he will bring a thoughtful and candid perspective to today's conversation as a Trump supporter. A little bit more right wing than James is. It'll definitely help give us the entire political compass, which is important, I think, when we analyze these exit polls. This isn't just about wins and losses. It is about what these results mean for the direction of both parties and for American politics as a whole. From shifting voter bases to emerging priorities, we're exploring how each party may need to rethink its strategy and messaging for the years to come. Together, we're going to discuss the pressures facing party leaders and divides that they'll need to bridge, what lies ahead as they seek unity and evolve. So join us as we dive into the pivotal election and the future it's bringing to shape. Alrighty, welcome back in. Thank you for listening to our beautiful little intro that I would like to note that I had to record 5 separate times because I kept stumbling over the words. As mentioned, we have a friend with us today. His name is Jeff, and he has a really cool show called Bearded Chats on Facebook where he discusses his take on politics and the world and everything that's going on. So without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll get into the episode. So the floor is yours, sir.
Ahoy, everybody. Thanks for having me. Um, yeah, I'm just a normal, everyday guy. I have a little bit of a different view than some people on here, but that's what this is all about, is listening to what everybody has to say and how they feel, why they feel how they feel, and all that stuff. So, full disclosure, in 2008, when Barack Obama was elected, if I was old enough to vote, I was 100% going to vote for him if I had the ability to. I'm from upstate New York, just like most of the guys on here, so nothing too special. I just have a different view on things, and if I like I said, I didn't get into politics until 2016. Really, I didn't really care for it much. Again, if I could have voted in '08, I would have voted for Obama just because I liked what he had to say and what he offered for the country, and then things changed 8 years later for me, and I found myself on the Trump train. So that's basically it. I got 3 little ones. Live with my girlfriend, and we're just day by day people. We work and try to raise kids, and we care about the future of the country, and that's why we come together and talk. And that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm 34. I'm up there in age, almost a dinosaur at this point. So
Oof.
that's basically it, though. I don't have anything special to say. I'm just a normal dude, just with some thoughts on things.
Hey, we appreciate it. That's what makes the country so good, is that normal dudes can have opinions and not get shot for it.
Yeah, that's the thing is I read your guys's Jimmy asked me to be on the show, and I read your kind of like your bio and your info on your page, and the whole front porch thing, and just having conversation without yelling and screaming and name calling. I mean, joking around's fun, poking at each other's fun, but nobody wants to sit down and have a conversation anymore because they're afraid of getting shouted at or called names, which I was guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get on Facebook and call people names, and it just didn't work. It doesn't do anything for anybody. It doesn't bring anybody closer together. So, I tone my stuff way down because this doesn't get anywhere. So it's not going to make anybody. You're not going to change everybody's minds. But if you can, come to the table and agree on some things, we're going to move forward. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like we lost the direction over the past decade or so, probably longer than that. It's been progressively getting downhill, probably for over like 30 years. But we lost
Right.
the perspective of compromise. It feels like it's my way or the highway kind of thing.
Right.
And that's an unfortunate reality that we live in. So I appreciate that you took the time to check us out. I did watch a couple of your videos on Facebook too, because I was admittedly nervous.
Same.
But it was a chill vibe, so I'm all down for that.
Yeah.
Diving into it, what What was everybody's kind of takeaway? We'll go around the table. Jimmy, I'll start with you. What was the message that you received on out of the political landscape in America? Like what when you went to bed on or woke up on Wednesday morning, we'll say, like, what were you like? This is where the country's at now. What was your take on it?
Honestly, I wasn't shocked. Uh, I've been saying this whole time with the way things are going, it was not shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just interested to see what happens. I'm not painting a this is what's going to happen situation with it because I honestly I don't know. We don't know. I don't think we really know yet who he's bringing into what positions. I know Stefanik just got named ambassador to the UN. There was talks of Rubio doing Secretary of State,
Yeah, I think Cash
but
Patel got a job too. I can't remember what it was, but
so I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I feel like when the first Trump presidency, he kind of gave more policy answers during the debates and stuff like that. I feel like there was more open, like this is what I'm going to do,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like there really wasn't much of that this time. I mean, I could be alone in that thought, but that's what I
No,
kind of gathered.
I'm with you.
So hoping for change from what we are at where we're at now, but just naturally a pessimist. So
And
we'll
that's
see.
that's completely fair. Shifting to the other side of the aisle, Cody, what are you thinking? What did you wake up to
Um,
in layman's
some
terms?
anxiety. I mean, yeah, some anxiety, some panic, right? Because I do want change. I want change in a positive direction that impacts the largest number of people in a positive fashion,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want to. You ever seen the newsroom skit with the fella from Dumb and Dumber whose name I can't think of?
Yeah, where he says why America's not the greatest country in the world anymore.
Right,
Is it
and
newsroom or something like that? I think it was called.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was on I think HBO before
Yep,
it
yep.
became Max and all the other shit that it is now. But right, like the part where he's talking about we used to morally stand for something, like taking care of one another and all of the things that he continues to reference in that. I I want that to be the change that we make. I want us to care about one another. I want us to lift one another up instead of fighting and arguing and right the same premise of the podcast where we're not beating each other down just to feel good for 5 seconds.
Mhm.
I hope that's what happens, but with everything that has gone on in terms of the divide and pushing people to one side or another, I don't know that I'm terribly confident that that's what's going to happen.
Do you think though we're too far gone?
I
No.
I don't think we're too far gone. I think right now there are so many people who have so much power, whether it be because of money or a lifetime in politics. I don't think anyone should have that much power because most people can't regulate their ego enough to actually do things that benefit people outside of themselves. Because when you get that much power, it typically corrupts quite a few people into. We've all seen The Lord of the Rings, I assume, and The Hobbit.
An absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. Like, Smaug is a great fucking example.
Yeah.
Dragon just hoarding the gold.
I
Is he the dragon?
yes,
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
sorry. I remember going and seeing Desolation of Smog. That was the first one I had ever seen. So I was
The
just
name wasn't the clue to you.
yeah. I did. Well, I don't know. I didn't know he was
Desolation
hoarding
of
gold. I thought
Smaug.
he just.
You think that it was just like a big bird or something?
I thought he was a pissed off dragon. I don't really know his whole deal. I didn't know he was
dragon.
hoarding money.
He's hoarding
Right.
all
I know,
the
I
gold
just-
of Erebor. And it doesn't
Right.
matter. That's not what this is about.
Right.
But
Yeah, I think people have gotten too much power, and they've gotten greedy with holding on to it instead of spreading the wealth.
That's you know what's funny about that is it's one of the things that the dichotomy of the American experience is so funny because universally both sides of the spectrum have that point of view where they believe that corporations have fucked the little guy for way too long, the government's in cahoots with the corporations, and we're all just kind of cattle in the long term. Now I will say, for peace of mind for James's do you think we're too far gone, there are two eras that I would like to point to that are significantly more divided in terms of the political spectrum than we are right now. I know it doesn't feel that way, but when you look at actual like polling data and interviews with people, the country was more evenly split than it is right now, because there's still, if we live in an era where the internet exists and the loudest voices are generally the minority, they're the extremist point of view. The talking heads, everybody's looking for clickbait stuff, so it's not the reality. We all talk about it all the time. Like, it feels like it's left and right when everybody hangs out in the middle. In the 1970s, the country post Vietnam was like literally at the point of like no return. It felt like there was constant violent protests. It was very like if you were either for or against Vietnam. If you were against Vietnam, it was fuck the government, we want to tear it down. If you were for Vietnam, then you're a scumbag. I mean, literally, soldiers would come home from war and have things thrown at them, get punched. Like, it was really, really bad. And then there was the election of, like, I think it was 1880 or 1890, where there was people literally dying in Louisiana, and there was fistfights in the congressional houses because they couldn't agree on the electoral disposition. So it was very much like the situation in Georgia, where like it was a really, really tight race, and the legislator was like, yeah, but we want this guy, and the legislator controls the electoral vote, so maybe we'll send there. So they sent two bodies, and those bodies got in a fight. It was a big whole. So my point being, it's been way worse. We just don't know that because I think the American education system does a really bad job of discussing the dark points of American history. So they like to paint the picture as like this pretty, like we always all get along, everything's been great, and there's been significant periods of strife in our history. Like, I mean, the Great Depression was pretty bad, but people didn't really have the means to rise up, per se.
Yeah. If I could piggyback for a second off
Yeah.
your guys's. So, I mean, I'm 34. I barely remember Clinton's time. So Clinton kind of he ran a good, other than getting blown in the Oval Office. He ran. I mean, he had the deficit. I think we had a positive. We weren't in the hole.
Yep.
A surplus. Yep. So everybody was kind of on the same page with Clinton, and then George Bush came along, and he was the son of a former president, and you know, then you had the war on terror, and you know, the country was unified for a little bit, and then it kind of split again. And then Obama felt like a breath of fresh air. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, 8 years later, he was, you know, that's when a lot of the racial stuff started to happen. Michael Brown, all that kind, you know, that Zimmerman, what's the hands up, don't shoot kid there. The cop was Zimmerman, but what was the kid's name?
Trayvon
Yeah,
Martin.
that all kind of, you know, snowballed into this racial divide, and then I felt like the country was like, all right, we don't need a politician, we need a businessman. And that's where I was kind of thinking, like, yes, Trump failed at a lot of businesses, but he's a multimillionaire. You know, maybe he can fix the country. And that's kind of the thought process I was going through in, you know, 2015, 2016 when he got elected. We wanted that breath of fresh air ran out with Obama, so we're like, all right, let's try this.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end of Trump's administration, COVID hit. You know, everybody has their feelings about COVID, how it could have been handled. And then people just wanted the old grandpa in the office to kind of settle things down and maybe fix things. And now we're back to here. So as far as too far gone, I mean, Trump's not and this is coming from a Trump supporter. Yeah, he says a lot of stupid shit. I don't agree with everything the man says. Just the last 4 years for people were a struggle, and they were like, man, I was doing a lot better in 2018, 2019. This is a little bit of, I guess, a breath of fresh air as far as people feeling their pocketbooks and all the other issues that we're going to talk about. But I know we're going to talk about future party stuff, but I mean, just starting from the Clinton era to now, there was that we need to change quick, and nobody really has had enough time to do anything because it's going to be 4 years for Trump, and then it was 4 years Biden, 4 years Trump previously. So it's hard to do stuff in 4 years, especially when you have midterms every 2 years. You know what I mean? So, and that's what my message, or that's what I was gonna have a show today, but I was looking forward to your guys' show, so I didn't do one. It looks like we're going to take the House. So if we're going to do something, we have to do it quick because we only have 2 years to do it. So if we're going to make changes and try to have a positive spin as Republicans or conservatives, I'm a conservative, we need to do it quick. And if we're going to unify people, we have to do it now. If we have all three sides, and it's going to be a lot, but I don't think we're too far gone. I mean, it could go that way very quickly, starting in January. But like Jimmy said, we'll see.
Yeah, it all remains to be seen. Now, you accidentally led to a perfect segue, which was talking to Clinton. So over the past, we'll say since the 90s, because that's when we're all born. So we'll talk about Bush 1 through. Historically speaking, Republicans were the party of commerce. They were the party of corporations. They were the party of business, and then the spin on it was, and the Democrats were the party of the working class or minorities, blah blah blah, and that was based on the electorate. Now we saw over the past 3 election cycles, with Trump being in it, a shift where Latinos, black men, white suburban women are all voting red for the first time in vast numbers. It's gotten worse and worse every single election, which leads to a demographic shift in terms of the Democrats now being the party of the people with the advanced degrees, the higher incomes, and then the working class party being Republicans. Now, what do you guys, as conservatives, and I'll let both Jeff and Jimmy talk about it, what do you think caused that shift? Where do you think that rift occurred? And do you think it's just a Trump-based thing, or do you think it's a genuine shift in Republican politics?
Jimmy, you want to spear that one first?
When it comes to are we just going to call it the black vote?
That's fine. African American.
That's the safe term, right? Because that's what I've seen CNN use. So
you guys just started and you're going to get canceled. Careful.
Yeah, I'm trying not to do that. I think with the black vote, you see, there was a commentator on Fox talking. I can't remember who it was. I think he was actually the guy who was on the left. He mentioned
Gerald Ford.
It could have been with Trump. A lot of black men seeing him get, convicted and dragged through the mud repeatedly, like nonstop, even since he got into office. And a lot of them took that as like, I've been there kind of thing. And I think some of that is relatable. And then when
real quick, I think what you're trying to say is it makes him more human and less like this untouchable
monster
political figure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
They can relate with that more, I guess, is the best way to word that.
Well, he feels more normalized because, right, when is the last time you think about, like, a politician being dragged through the mud, not during a campaign, and when is the last time you recall a politician going to court?
That's the problem. They never do.
Right.
And I'm going to be quite honest with you. They talk they say, oh, like Trump's wow, words are not wording. Convicted. Wow. Sorry. I've been looking at weather stuff too much. I'm trying to say convection. Convicted felon. But let's be frank here. If both sides of the aisle, if any of these politicians got their backgrounds looked into, their money books looked into, like I bet you all of them would be convicted felons. Not all. Let's not say all. 75%.
It's a good chunk.
No.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, oh, sorry, Jimmy. My bad.
so I mean like it's I think it's cute when you get like the Nancy Pelosi saying, "Oh, he's a convicted felon and all this other stuff." But she's been making some stock decisions that are really questionable. Like if she has that inside information. Like you locked up Martha Stewart for that shit.
Get the
So
words right out of my mouth, dude. I was gonna say Pelosi. That was the one I was gonna say.
like it's one of those things where I sit there and I'm like, okay, but which one of like how many of these politicians are actually clean? And again, money talks, they get away with stuff. It's not anything new. They're a protected class, which I think is complete and total BS. Um, so, and I think with like we look at the Hispanic vote starting to push more and more right. I think that has to do with the religion aspect of it because from what I've seen, which is not a lot, but I've seen, um, a lot of Hispanic cultures tend to be heavy into religion, um, and I think a lot of it specifically is Christianity. I could be wrong on that,
No, you are
but
correct.
and I think that plays a fact into it or plays into it.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as like, because suburban white women, they were they were the downfall of Trump last election cycle, if I'm not wrong.
You are correct.
He lost a lot of them. And if you think about the suburban white women, and again, this isn't all of them, but a lot of them are mothers. A lot of them have the bills, that got to get paid. A lot of them are the ones doing the grocery shopping. Not that that's tradition. Like I don't believe in traditional roles or anything like that, but that is very common. And I think when they seen the differences at the gas station, at the grocery store, at all that, I think in their mind, like Jeff said, you went back and you're thinking, well, in 2019, my groceries cost me $170. Now it's 250. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you have like that mental or that memory of not even 5 years, or well, just about 5-6 years ago, pre-COVID, of course, everything was cheaper. And I think a lot that because Trump was smart and played into that. So when you look at these things, I think honestly he ran a better campaign than Kamala. Um, as much as I hate to praise him because I really am not a fan of him. But he I think honestly if Democrats had chosen anybody else, it would have been a lot closer or a loss for Trump. So I don't know that it's a changing thing as much as it is candidate at the time, if that makes sense.
No, you. Yeah, that was very. I don't mean to step on toes here. I'm just a new guy, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, as far as like Latinos, um, I mean, why do they come to America? To better their lives. And if they come here and they can barely afford to live, if they came in legally or illegally, I mean, I'm not saying all Latinos are the ones that are sneaking the country, but they come here, have a better life, and then they find out that they can't, whatever job they're working, they can't afford to pay for stuff, then if they can have a vote, they're going to vote for the person that gives them that option to have the better life when they come here. So, kind of piggybacking off what Jimmy said, if you look at the top issues, economy is the number one for what I've seen from Gallup, and I believe AP is the other one I looked at.
Yep.
That's the top issues, and if you're coming here to better your life and you can't survive in this economy, and you're not going to go back to where you came from, no matter what country it's from. So that's kind of everything Jimmy said pretty much, and then I just have to add, if you're coming here and you want to have a better life and you can't afford it, and if you can have a say in it, you're going to vote to make it better. So that's kind of where I'm at too. Also, in Jimmy's defense, Kamala wasn't given a ton of time. I will say that.
Yeah, 107 days.
Yeah, 107 days is a pretty shitty amount of time
to
run for an election in our country.
Oh, dude, I've heard them blame everybody. Everybody. The media calling Trump Hitler and all that stuff. That doesn't help her. That just pisses off the Trump base.
Yeah.
But just from the Kamala standpoint, 107 days is not a lot of time. And if she stays quiet, she gets ridiculed. She goes on Fox, kind of blows it, and then on The View, she said she wouldn't change anything. Doesn't help her, but again, 107 days, you got to make your case in a short amount of time. And, should Biden have dropped out sooner? I don't know. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people have said. Exactly. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of the mainstream media, now they're shifting to Trump should have, and Pelosi wanted to push him off the edge of the cliff probably a couple years ago, but
yeah, I heard
she had to stick with everybody.
I heard in her interview that she said that the unspoken assumption was that he was basically going to be a bridge.
That's what I heard. Yep.
Yeah.
That Biden was going to be a bridge, right?
Yeah, the whole point was that he was supposed to...
He wasn't going to run for a second term. He was going to... Yeah,
exactly. He was supposed to pass on to the next generation of Democratic leadership.
Right. And do I think he should have? Yes. Because largely, right, dropping out with 107 days in a race in any other country would have been completely fine. But because our election cycle is so damn long...
Mm-hmm.
It's never ending, really, because of the midterms being every 2 years.
Gosh, Trump declared a month after he lost, or a year after he lost, or something? It was like 3 Novembers ago. He's like, I'm running for president again. It's like, whoa, dude, pump the fucking brakes, all right?
And we've got a few years,
So you guys
take a nap.
You guys addressed some things that were really, really good for me. I'm going to give you guys all a round of applause because you are making the transitions of topics so fucking easy.
Right.
So the one thing, in a common takeaway I've heard from centrist, I say centrist media, but Jeff, have you seen the media bias chart where it has
I don't think I had.
Okay, so it's basically it takes individual news shows.
Is something I can look up real quick?
Yeah, you can look up. I can't think of what company does it, but it's if you just look up media bias chart, it'll show up for you.
There's 700 of them though, just so you know.
Yeah, the ad fonts one is the one that people use the most.
Okay, that's the top choice, so I'll look at that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I say centrist, I mean middle balanced on that spectrum of what they're showing.
Okay.
So.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Yeah, a lot of those outlets are diving into the exit polls and saying that, for the most part, the dichotomy of American politics remains the same. It's really subtle differences in economic views, and that this election is more of a rejection of the Democratic Party than it was an endorsement of the most extreme portions of right-wing policy. And I say that because obviously when you dive into the individual, so speaking on the abortion front, even, and also in terms of the individual local elections, states that Trump won handily elected Democratic governors. They passed abortion laws, or abortion protections. They did what you would consider to be progressive things while still voting for Donald Trump in the general election. And so that goes to show that it was a lot about, like you said, the economy. Democrats did not have a good message. then the problem I think that Democrats run into, and I don't know if you read my little article I wrote about how basically the Democrats suck at campaigning.
Mhm.
But the big thing is that you look down and you see yourself in 2017, 2018, and you're like, holy fuck, my money went a lot farther. And then across the entire globe, incumbency has been getting completely kicked out. You got Germany, you've got the UK, France almost went literally like Nazi right wing if it wasn't for
Yep.
Macron calling for an emergency election right away.
Yep.
So that just goes to show that it's not a uniquely American thing, that everybody is kind of pushing toward that populist nativist movement. But when, ironically enough, when polled, really progressive policies poll really, really high. So paid maternity leave being mandatory and at minimum 12 months polls at 84%. Government funded childcare polls at 75%. Boosting the minimum wage to $15 federally polls at 60%. Tuition free public colleges polls at 57%. Universal Medicare polls at 54%. I mean, they even pulled universal basic income, which is extreme for me, and I'm pretty progressive, and that's at 28%. So,
that's a bit much.
That's ridiculous. I would
That's all.
call me a conservative if that's ever a thing that people want to do. But so,
Hold on, let me record that. No, I'm kidding.
my point being that I think it shows hope for the American people, because I think the darkest points of I'm going to say the word Trumplicant, and I don't mean it disrespectfully. I just mean I don't have another word, because it's such a unique brand. It's such a unique brand of Republican politics. It really is. Because I said in 2016 I would have voted for John Kasich in a second. But so it just goes to show that like the more extreme versions of that, I don't even think people really pay attention to. I really think that they think when Donald Trump says that crazy shit, that and like the sycophants that he has that are saying, like Stephen Miller, like how he's like basically like the crazy shit that he says, and I don't think I need to elaborate on what he said. He's
right.
But the American people as a whole, not for that. They're purely saying, hey, I think that when Donald Trump was president, the economy was doing pretty good, and then this really freak pandemic happened, and nobody fixed it, and so we want that guy back because what he was doing was good for us. And I say that as a kind of peace of mind for people who are out and about basically kind of clamoring for the fall of Olympus. I can't say with confidence it's not, because you never know. But at the end of the day, I don't personally think that's the case. Number one, we live in a world where Congress can filibuster things. So if there's anything too extreme going through, Democrats will filibuster it so it gets drowned out by some mediocre paperwork. So that's something that you can pay attention to. Number two, in the more progressive states, more progressive policies are being pushed through, and there's governments. There's already been talk, because they talked about the dismemberment or the dismantling of the Department of Education. I think there's a grotesque misunderstanding of what the Department of Education does for people, but I'm not going to get there. The point being that the states like California, Minnesota, New York, New Jersey, their governors are already talking about setting up like a joint education fund if the Department of Education were to go under. So there's going to be safety nets established if things are really, really bad. But I think it's interesting that when polled on policy, Americans like progressive policy, but when polled, if you put a Democrat next to that policy, the polling drops like 40%. And so I think Democrats have a shit message. And that's a big problem that they need to kind of look in the looking glass and say, why is it that our policy initiatives poll really well, but we don't? And I think it's because they're political nerds. That's my opinion.
So, go ahead.
I'll give my piece from the left side real quick and let you guys go.
Take your time.
I think the other part of it too, right, is every Democratic candidate that I can remember, and I'm 32. It's not like I'm fucking ancient, but I'm also not a spring chicken. Has had real good, hopeful one-liners, but then minimal things to back it up. I think the person who maybe had the most to say to back up what they wanted to make their presidency about was, like Jeff said, he would have voted for him in '08 if he could have, and I would have as well. Obama actually talked about what he was going to do, and not in a vague fashion. I think so much of it has been like, well, we're going to do this grand idea here. We're not going to explain how it helps you. We're not going to explain what it actually does. We're not going to explain really much of anything other than we have an idea. Cool. I have ideas all the time. Some of them are fucking terrible. They don't get charismatic enough candidates to actually have ideas that are based in what their constituent base wants. They don't elaborate. They don't plan. They just basically run on the premise, hey, I'm not a Republican.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was. I think that was
you want a
Kamala's whole
cookie?
message.
Yeah, and it was. It
Like
was
her
so
tagline
much
should
of
have
it.
been, "Kamala, vote Harris. I'm not Trump."
Well,
Like
and
that would have just been easier.
even I live in Onondaga County, so it was Mannion versus Williams, and that was like the thing here too. And it was just like I hate that this is what politics has become, because it's never actually about what you're going to do for your people. It's not what you're about. It's not about what you're going to do for your constituents. It's about, hey, I'm not this other guy.
No, they have fully muddied
Okay.
themselves with culture war. There's no policy anymore.
Right,
Yeah.
which really diminishes any ability to fucking do anything.
So I went back and watched one of the debates with Romney. Was it Romney?
Romney was the 2012 election, and then the 2008 election was McCain.
McCain, yeah. So Romney, I went back and watched the Romney-Obama debate just because I was, wanted to see what civil discourse looked like for 5 minutes. And
I think that's the one where he talks about horses and bayonets. I remember watching that in college.
yeah,
Well, the VHS one.
but like they actually had like quality debate.
Right, they talked about actual things that matter.
If I'm not mistaken, that election at the town hall, the woman called Obama a terrorist, and McCain said, "No, we're not going to do that here." Like, I think he said something along the lines of like, "We both want what's best for America. We just see different ways to get there." And like that version of politics has gone out the window. It's gone.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I think I'd shit myself.
The worst part is that statement still rings true today.
Yes.
Like, we all want what's best for the country, but we just have different ways of getting to it. And that's why I think I want to go back to the old ways when you had two people running for president. One was VP, the loser was VP. Because then you're forced to work together.
Jesus, when was the last time that happened? 18 fucking
Gosh. God damn.
Yeah, I think in the 1800s.
The old ways. I was like, the old ways.
I mean, keep some of that old stuff back there. Just bring that to the future. I want to clarify with that. Just to be safe. No cancel culture here, please. But like the thing is like the problem is they've gotten so used to campaigning off of hating each other, when in truth, majority of them are probably out having drinks together afterwards.
Yep.
Well, and even if they're not, it cannot be about hating the other person and not being the other person, because that is such a low fucking bar. It's a low bar game, right? My premise is I'm not racist. Well, I'm okay. That's wonderful. Can you maybe also do something productive?
Yeah, like, and that's the problem, I think, is even with Biden's whole campaign was a referendum on Trump. This one was a referendum on Biden. I understand why the parties chose to attack from that angle, but that's not how politics is supposed to work. Politicking literally means working together with somebody else. Coming up with a solution together.
We should do this like the Olympics in track, where every time you knock over a hurdle, you lose time, but instead you just lose electoral college votes every time you shit talk your opponent.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, dude, I think when they start going at each other, I think just let them fight. Put a boxing ring right in the middle of Congress. C-SPAN's viewership will go up.
I
That'll be a premium channel.
I will say this regarding this recent election cycle. I think, as much as it did completely ruin Biden's prospects of running for president, I think that debate had the most decorum because of the muting system. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Yeah, when you mute people when they don't have the mic, then guess what? They fucking behave. And
Mhm.
so, because they can't get their soundbite out.
It's this magical thing called accountability.
So if we have to treat politicians like we treat sixth graders, so be it. You know, if that's gonna get us
Yeah.
back.
No, so be it. I don't want that. The standard for that is way too low. That should not
agree.
be.
It
You know what I'm saying?
It
Like,
shouldn't be, but it's a way where you can take a step in the direction we want to go. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is a
Jump in for a
temporary.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to unpack a couple things.
Yeah.
Nationally, it seems like most people are single issue voters as far as like most people just want a good economy. But locally, it's like abortion, things like that.
Yep.
So I'm on this site. It's called Blueprint. I just found it today. It's basically, from what I'm understanding, is the Democrats' way of unpacking how Harris ran, and so they'll give you a topic, and it's broken down into five ways the voters went. It's either all voters, all swing voters, black voters, swing voters chose Trump, or Latino voters. And the third one they came up with was Kamala Harris's focus more on cultural issues like transgender issues rather than helping the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
And swing voters chose Trump plus 28, and that's the biggest one of all. That's the highest number of all the topics.
Yep.
Like inflation was too high under Biden Harris. Chose Trump plus 23. Like plus 28 is the biggest number on here. And I think you guys nailed it. I mean, most people choose the president to fix their pocketbooks. Abortion is a good, perfect example. Is it got pushed back to the states. Now you can elect if you live in a place where I'm very pro-life, but if you live in a place, I live in New York, so if anybody wants to go kill their baby, they can in this state. You know what I mean? Like you elect your local officials for that, or your state officials, I should say. But nationally, people just want it's more of a single issue vote for national like the presidency, and I think that's where Harris failed. Is she was pushing abortion and transgender issues other than here's my fucking plan to fix the economy. She should have separated herself from Biden. I think she should have 25th Amendment in my personal opinion. I think she should do it now, and she could still be the first woman to be president if she does that. So I mean, but again, I know. I think she was afraid to do it because she had a lot of Biden's base. I think that's why she didn't separate from him because she thought she had all those voters.
Yeah.
And surprise. But that was just my take on what you guys were talking about as far as where I think she kind of fucked it for herself.
Well, and I think you.
Pardon my French.
Who cares? I think you have a great point, right? Most people are single issue voters, and part of that is I'm willing to bet, and maybe there's somewhere that has a statistic on this. The fact that our election cycle is like fucking 18 months long.
Right.
People get apathetic. They're like, I'm tired of hearing this shit. Can we just have it done?
Dude. I do this. I've been doing this. I mean, I just hopped in doing videos of myself, but I've been following politics since 2016. And there were times before Trump was almost killed, I was just like, oh my gosh, like because I listen to Daily Wire. I flip on Fox News. I flip to all the channels. I try to listen to everything. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like a right wing crazy person that just listens to. I don't even like Alex Jones. To be perfectly honest with you, the dude's fucking annoying and he's nuts. But that aside,
Frogs are gay, though.
The frogs are gay. Gay frogs. No, it just got to the point where it was like, if Trump hadn't announced a year after he lost, I think I wouldn't have been so like because he was like selling digital like cards and all this other shit to raise money, and I'm like, dude, like,
NFTs, shoes, coins.
yeah, we just lost. Like, I know you want to build a base, like, and it worked, we won, but everybody was tired of it, and then the assassination attempt happened, and everybody got hyped again, and then it fell back down, and then the debate happened with Biden, and everybody got hyped up again. It was just a big roller coaster, and like you said, I think the cycle was just way too long, and people got stressed about it. And I shouldn't say I don't like Alex Jones. He has some points, but there's things that he says that I'm just like, oh my god, man.
Alex Jones will forever.
It's more comical.
He'll forever be on my shit list just because of Sandy Hook. Outside of that,
yeah.
I watched there's a special I watched on that. I was, but continue.
I was just gonna say, like, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Like, everyone's gonna make a good point every so often, and I think largely right. I'll speak for myself. The election cycle, and this might not be a popular opinion, so just bear with me for a second. The election cycle feels like a movie franchise that went way too long. Fast and Furious.
It's Fast and Furious. Yeah.
Right, like, I'm not going to invest 14 months into reading everything about politics that I can possibly muster when I have bills to worry about. I have raising a child to worry about. I have going to work, the stress of my job. Depending on your job, the stressors are different. Paying a mortgage, figuring out student loans if you have them, navigating holidays, things with family. Sometimes family members are sick. Like, we all have a bunch of shit going on. Investing 14 months into politics, if you're not a politician, is not realistic.
And I think the big thing is, too, is like, after a while, you kind of just get sick of hearing about it. You're like honestly, I was looking forward to election day just so it'd be over. Like, I literally was just like, let's get this shit wrapped up.
I know you do
like,
a political podcast, right?
I know, but it's like,
well, I think to James's point, this is very different than what we see and hear everywhere else.
Yeah,
there's vitriol in in the world when it comes to like these politics stuff. Like, there's just so much hate, and then the election happens, a couple months pass by, and it kind of slows down. Like, I mean, you still have your crazies. Like, I've been on Twitter in the last week, and oh buddy, but it's one of those things where you just become so exhausted by it. Like, honestly, like, Trump paid Stormy Daniels whatever because she peed on him. Okay, but I still got to get groceries, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's that. I think that just kind of wears on people to where the point where you just get so run down. You're just like, I don't care. What's your policy? You know, like, and I think that helps Trump because you're taking away the outside noise, the negative stuff. You hear about it every day for 2 years. You're just like, I just don't even care.
And everything with Trump was baked into the cake. Like, what you found out in 2016 as far as what he's into as president, like, he's a rich guy that says a lot of stuff tongue in cheek, and he's not your typical politician of he's not boring. He's not, I was going to say Bill Clinton, but he got himself in some scandals too, but like, he's not George Bush. He's not like go out and talk in front of the country and then you don't really see much of him for a little bit, When you see Joe Biden today, he's usually like falling or running into a wall or something, but Donald Trump he was a TV, he's a talk show host, he's a millionaire, not talk show host, he was a reality show
personality.
Yeah, and he was a different guy, and when he ran for a second term, and everything was baked into the cake with Donald Trump. Like, with Harris, it was like, all right, she came from California, like, what else can we find out about her? She didn't have any, like, other than sleeping with Willie Brown there. the scandal. And there's no scandal. There was a fail upward attitude that the right was kind of putting out there. Like, what has she accomplished? Okay, she was a prosecutor. Okay, cool. Like, but then she says that stuff on stage. Well, I'm the only person on stage that prosecuted anybody. Oh, okay, well, cool. But like, what are you gonna do? Jimmy said, what are you gonna do to fix the country? Like, don't tell me what you've done. Tell me what you're gonna do. And that's where people were sick of hearing. Okay, yeah, we know Trump's into some stuff that back in the day he said some stupid shit. But like, what did he do 4 years ago that he's gonna do today? So I don't really like piggybacking off people, but you guys are taking the words right out of my mouth, you intelligent people.
I think another problem, right, is politicians were never meant, politics in and of itself as a public service position was never meant to be a career thing. We haven't put any limitations on that, so Nancy Pelosi is a great example. She's fucking longer than I've been alive. We don't limit the amount that people can participate in politics. So, there's not this consistent infusion of fresh blood, for lack of a better way to put it, right? There's not new people going in. It's, oh, I'm affiliated with this person, so I'm in here and I've been here forever, right? Like, on every scale, it can't just be like, yeah, the president can serve 2 terms. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
You want someone on the Supreme Court who can't read because they're like 85 years old and they don't make glasses that thick? No, you want people who are in touch with what is going on in the world, not people who have been on the Supreme Court for 40 years, made $400,000 a year for the 40 years, and live in a mansion, and the closest they get to talking to a neighbor is when their gardener comes. No, that's crazy. You want people in every stage of politics who are in touch with what's going on in the world. You want regular, everyday people taking those positions to better their community, not people who are just getting into politics to get rich or make money or to be there for until the cows come home.
It's made for public service. That position is made for you to service the public, not for the public to service you.
Right.
And that is the easiest way to say it. And that is,
like,
I think that is an overall problem. Like, I mean, it ties to money. Honestly,
right.
At the end of the day, it all ties back to money.
The Supreme Court how long? Anyone know? Just out of curiosity.
Too long.
I honestly, once you have to use a walker, see ya.
And I'm not saying any of this to be ageist. I just don't think.
Be ageist, that's fine.
No, but it's a valid point. Like, we have 80-year-olds running the country. That's fine and dandy. But when they were when they were our age, they didn't have computers.
Who's the mayor of where you guys live? I can't remember. And I'm shocked if it's someone different than when I live there.
Campo Pierce, but she's another one that's in the
okay.
She's been in the political sphere for long enough.
Well, so the mayor of where I live is Ryan McMahon, and he's the mayor because his dad was the mayor. Okay, cool. He's been the mayor the entire time I've lived here. 7 years. If you can't do something productive to help the city you serve in 7 years, maybe it's time to hang it up.
To be fair, right? The mayor where we live is nothing more than a headpiece.
Yeah.
Sure. I get it. And right, we're all intelligent enough here to know that in 4 years as president, you maybe get a few things done because of how our political system works. So there's maybe some degree of scene change towards the latter half, if not towards the dead end of your presidency, experienced by the general public. If
that's
you can't
not an excuse.
Do something, no, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, right, like what the general public typically sees. Say if each president is only president for 4 years, the changes they see aren't from like, right, so Trump will be short of anything he does immediately. Any changes that are still going on in January aren't a result, or like February 15th, aren't necessarily a result of him taking office so much as it's a result of things that were already in motion. Unless he makes a lot of drastic changes immediately, which who knows? I'm not pretending I have any answers. But none of us are dumb enough to think that, oh, you get in there in 4 years and then dealing with the House and senators, you just get shit done immediately and changes take effect like that. That's not how any of it works.
So here's the thing, though. So even if, right, even with a divided, you have Republican president, Republican Senate, Democrat House, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Their whole job is to compromise and get stuff done. So
Oh yeah.
like the whole like
But
the thing that
you and
pisses
I
me
both
off
know it
is
hasn't been that way for years.
I know, but that's the sad thing. Like that's how it's supposed to be. These conversations that we have, like on this podcast itself, are conversations that our politicians are supposed to be having and compromising on things.
Right.
And that is their whole job. So when you're not doing your job, you need to
Right.
be
They
fired.
get paid taxpayer dollars. Right. But how easy is it to fire someone in a public office position? It's not terribly easy. Right.
And
So
then,
like
No,
and the higher up it goes, the harder it is.
and then people like one issue I took with Bernie Sanders recently is during his debate. They discussed term limits, and his opponent is for term limits. And then he said, "I'm not for term limits, mostly." And he said, "Mostly
What?
because they already exist. If you don't like me, vote me out." But that doesn't take into account the incredible degree of difficulty it takes to get into a general election. You cannot just do that. People like you
No.
and I cannot run for office. We do not have the money or the means to do so. And so, if it is not going to be a publicly funded election in which anybody can seek public funds for election, then there needs to be term limits, because otherwise you are counting out half of the, or more than half, the 90% of the populace from ever being able to run for office. Because guess what? It's too expensive.
Right. And the other
Just
part
gotta
of
raise
it,
$1 million. Just come vote me out. That's all you gotta do. Just raise billions of dollars and just come vote me out.
Yeah, that was good.
that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was
I'm
really good.
impressed. The other part of it, right? If I wanted to run for the mayor of where I live, could I unseat an incumbent who's been there longer than I've lived here?
Breaking
No.
news: Cody Bowser running for mayor of.
Oh, breaking news! Breaking news!
Just kidding.
Yeah, I promise you it won't happen. I have no interest in engaging in politics. If I could run for the town supervisor maybe for 2 years and call it a day, sure. That's
Actually,
about as
did
far as
breaking
it's
news
gonna
though.
go. Yeah.
Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy were appointed to the Department of Government Efficiency
Right.
just a little bit ago. So, continue. Sorry, that I just felt like I needed to be important for a second. So, continue.
It's good. That is important news.
I think a lot of my critiques of our government is that it is not set up for the regular everyday person to have a place in public office and to be able to impact change. And so most of my life the status quo has been, if you want to impact change, vote. Cool, I did that. Like, what would you like from me otherwise?
and the sad thing is like, take this room or this chat right now. If you gave us the opportunity to work on policy,
We'd
it
probably
would
get a
take
lot of
us.
shit done.
We would have, the world would be different, or the United States would be different tomorrow. And that's the part that kind of sickens me is like,
Maybe by Friday. I'm gonna need some caffeine, some sleep, and some food. Maybe by Friday.
okay, well, I need a fresh can of Zen, so I'm gonna at least need a
Ooh,
gas station trip.
I need a bag,
winner.
man.
So, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we could hammer it out, and it wouldn't be an issue. And the fact of the matter is we have.
We're
I don't
probably
even
pretty
remember.
evenly divided right now.
I'm just brain farting on how many Congress people there are.
Congress people,
And then we have,
like, as in like the House of Representatives.
yes.
It's like 520 some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
218 is majority, so.
Yeah, so we'll have 520 something people working, and none of them can put it together. And then the laws they write are so long, and I understand closing loopholes, but short and sweet.
Well, and
Like,
it's in part because they throw shit in that isn't relevant to the actual main conceptualization of the bill.
Yeah.
That bothers me so much.
Like
So much
funding,
fat.
funding
Make a separate bill.
Yeah. Okay, we threw in new office chairs for everybody in this bill, so make sure you sign it. Like, oh, well, I didn't really want the stuff at the top of the list, but, I kind of want a new chair, so.
Right. My ass
And
was
another problem is,
sitting on the
too,
same chair for 10 years.
the other problem, too, Cody, honestly, is we live in a world where if you watch these Capitol Hill meetings and the Eric Swalwell's a perfect example. He wants that 15-second to 30-second, 40-second clip of him trying to roast somebody, and he doesn't care if it gets results. He's got that clip to put on his Twitter or his X and share it to everybody and say, "Oh, look! I tried to roast Ben Shapiro."
Right. It's more
even though
like
he looks so stupid.
it's more like a shitty reality TV show.
Yeah, I was
Exactly.
Gonna say, Capitol Hill has become a fucking extension of Bravo.
Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
It was a terrible New Jersey accent.
Fucking pardon me, all right? I was born in Texas and lived in New York most of my life. I don't know what you were expecting.
Don't make me bring Bernie Sanders back out here, okay?
But it is. You're not wrong. It very much is like a reality TV show where people want their 15 seconds of fame, and instead of, or infamy, whatever you want to call it, and instead of focusing on doing the right thing for the people who elected them to that position, they're focused on being almighty and all powerful and meh. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
In 40 years, no one's going to remember who you are.
no, not unless they're forced
We
to
all
read a
remember
history
Guy
book.
Fawkes, don't we? I'm not making a hint or anything.
I don't know why. I thought you were taking us on a trip to Flavor Town there for a second. Just like you said, Guy, I was like, Fieri?
You think I'm gonna bring up Guy Fieri on a fucking political podcast?
Dude, you never know.
Hey, stranger things have happened.
All right, let's move to our closing topic, which is, all in all, in a perfect world, given what you have now seen about the American electorate, where do you think we end up in 4 years? Give your political prediction, and we'll start with Jeff. Give us what you think's going to happen, my brother.
Wait, time out. One question. You mean my best, like what I hope for out of the next 4 years?
Not what you hope for, what you really think is going to happen.
Oh, fuck. All right. Yeah, Jeff, you definitely go first. I've got no idea.
Oh, God. All right. Well, I'm going to start with, and it's already happening. I'm going to start not in our country, but we're already having conversations with Russia, Ukraine, China's starting to fall back in line. All these countries that were laughing at us essentially, and trying to take over Taiwan and all this other shit. It's already starting to happen. Qatar is kicking out Hamas. So I think there's going to be a lot more peace. That's not even in 4 years. I think that's going to happen. I mean, I'm optimistic that it'll happen within a year. Russia's going to be out of Ukraine. They'll get that figured out. As far as our own country, I'm looking forward to Tom Homan cleaning house with illegal immigrants. Now, I don't. Hopefully, I don't. He doesn't, scoop up the 80-year-old grandma that's still kind of here overstaying her visa or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, immigration. The border's going to be fixed. Hopefully, again, I say hopefully because remember when he said he was going to build a wall and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That had a lot to do with funding from the government because $5 billion is too much, but we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine to defend their borders. But
didn't he also say he was going to forgive student loans for people who went and helped build the wall? Wasn't that a thing at one point? Am I delusional?
He may have. I didn't. A couple years ago, so I couldn't tell you. I can't say yes or no.
If that be the case and we get that right, let me just throw on a MAGA hat real quick and move to Texas.
I don't think you're ever going to see gas prices go back down under $2. Again, I
No.
hope so, but that's just the way the markets are. Inflation's going to take a bit to get back down. I know that's not all Biden, but he didn't help the case. Inflation was a worldwide thing. I don't think the Inflation Reduction Act helped. I think he said it didn't even help. But again, 4 years into the future, hopefully we'll see inflation back down. Hopefully Trump doesn't get killed.
Yeah.
Before he was president, they tried to take a couple shots at him, or they did take a couple shots at him. And then I kind of hope after all, I'm missing a lot of things, but I'm kind of tired. But my hope is I got some names written down for 2028. If JD Vance proves himself, I think he could run. I like Ramaswamy. I even wrote down some Republican or Democrat names if you guys want to hear.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people hate Josh Shapiro, but I don't know if it would have brought her over the line in Pennsylvania. Maybe not. I know J.B. Pritzker's name gets brought up, but Chicago's a shithole for violent crime anyway. I wrote down Andy Bashir, Hakeem Jeffries. These are all guys that are under 60, kind of that youth movement we were talking about as far as Democratic Party. I don't think Bernie's going to run. Pelosi's out. I don't think Harris is going to run again. And Schumer is just, cooking raw hamburger meat and taking pictures with it. So Newsom, I think Newsom's a maybe, but a lot of people don't like him.
I hate Gavin Newsom. So.
There are a shitload of people who don't like Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, so I
think that would be stupid.
Every time he dips his toe in the pool, I'm like, man, you are just. And the only time he cleans up California is when China's coming to visit. So, but Josh Shapiro, in 2022, he was plus 10.4 in his governor race, and that was
that's pretty large.
That's pretty. Yeah, so Democrats again. I'm a Republican, but those are the names that I kind of think for.
I would vote for Josh Shapiro.
You hit on something.
He's a Jew, though.
You hit on something, which is that the best Democratic candidates are populist candidates. So, Cody and I had this discussion ourselves about Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke. You got to get obviously J.B. Pritzker is probably not the best example in this category, but you got to get a Democrat who came from the working class, strapped their boots up, worked their way up, knows how to relate, knows how to message. You can't, because the biggest worry I have, and it shows in polling, is that people are assuming that the Democratic Party is moving toward elitism, and you think about it, since Hillary Clinton's been the candidate, they've been really kind of condescending to Republicans. You had the garbage comments, you had deplorables, you've had all of these things where they just make Republican voters who are also Americans seem like lesser than, and we need a candidate who.
You need to get the swing voters, man. Yeah. That's what it is.
Exactly. It radicalized a lot of people, right? In the same way that, some Republicans have called Democrats snowflakes and libtards and all the other shit, right? You radicalize a lot of people when you start name calling and pointing fingers instead of having civil discourse, providing educational, factual material, and having conversations about what that material means and says, and getting actual fucking input from people who know what they're doing and are doing the research and know how to interpret it.
Yeah.
I think Mayor Pete would be wonderful, because
I have his name down too. Yeah, he's 42. He's still young. I don't like Pete Buttigieg, but a lot of people do.
But I guess routinely goes on Fox.
What's that? I didn't catch that.
Oh, he routinely goes on Fox and does interviews.
Yeah, that's good. He's going to. I wouldn't call Fox too Republican, because they got a lot of squishy people on there, but he goes to enemy territory,
right? But it's more leaning that way than CNN is.
Exactly. But in 2020, I would want JD Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy for our side, DeSantis even. Any of those. Candace Owens. Everybody brings Candace Owens up, but I don't think she's ever going to run for any sort of office. As far as the names that are being thrown out there that I don't think, like Elise Stefanik, I don't think she's popular enough. Lee Zeldin, same thing. Doug Burgum, he said 4 words on the debate stage, and then the other Christy Nome, she just got named to some sort of office, and she had that issue with shooting her dog or whatever in her book, and people don't like her for that. So that's just the future of the Republican Party for me. If JD Vance can prove himself as VP, and I want him to push back against Trump. If it comes down to, I mean, I know Kamala had the tie-breaking vote for like the Inflation Reduction Act. If that came to JD Vance and he didn't like it and said that and didn't vote for it and went against Trump, that's fine. Like that's what it goes back to the loser becoming VP. Like the VP needs to push back against the president, and Mike
Yeah.
Pence. Mike Pence did that on the like when he certified the election. I'm not a big election stolen guy. Shady shit happened, but Democrats jumped on it quicker than Republicans did. I think it was mail-in voting or early voting. Trump had a problem with, but we did it this time, and look what happens. We adapted and we won. But the VP needs to push back and make the right decisions, and a lot of people wanted to crush Mike Pence for certifying that election, but
He did what he
there was
was
no proof
put
that
in
it was stolen.
office to do.
Exactly. That's for once someone was doing their job in office. So that's my
Yeah.
view. That's kind of how I feel about the future of the country. Hopefully, it's back to where we were for the most part before COVID hit. You know, nobody was unified, but hopefully we can get that unified feeling back. And kind of like after 9/11, when everybody had an American flag hanging out in front of their house, everybody felt together, everybody cared about each other, and then that just went away, and we haven't gotten that feeling back yet, unfortunately. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's a fair place to be. Um, James, do you want
Sorry to ramble, guys.
You're good, man. That's what we're good at too. James, do you want to jump off of him since you're on his side of the aisle and what you see happening?
Yeah. I don't know what to expect. I think is the biggest problem right now. Uh, I can tell you what I'm hopeful for. I'm hopeful for, you know, being able to afford to buy the nice Doritos. You
Formula.
know, get that family pack. Yeah, baby formula, that's coming up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be able to afford things again. And it sounds bad because like I make enough to where, it's not a huge concern. But, you know, I want to be able to just have an extra $30 to go spend on football cards and shit like that. Like stuff that I want to use it for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think I I just don't know. And I think that's where
Start
I'm
an
at.
OnlyFans.
Like,
Be a real man. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, start selling feet pics. Um, but I'm hopeful for unity. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But that's why I like what we're doing. 'Cause, they say be the change you want to see. And granted, we have what, 30 listeners? Cool. But I want to be a catalyst for change. And I think what we're doing is important. But back to what I hope for, or whatever, for the next 4 years, I'm not sure. Going past that, I see Ramaswamy having it, or running, having a shot. Um, I don't know. And the thing is with when you're looking forward to candidates for the next election, there's gonna be one or two people that pop up mid election or mid presidency
It's still way too
that
fucking
you're
early, too.
that you're gonna be
But
like, hey, this person might actually be it. Um, I'm hoping now that Trump will, after 4 years, will be officially done. Um, Debates and all that become more policy related and become more civil discourse because I think a lot of like when you look at these leaders, they're role models. So if my candidate's out there saying "fuck you, Rosie O'Donnell," you kind of laugh about it, and then you're like, that's how we are now. And you copy that. And like, even as adults, you see it. You kind of emulate those who are above you.
Yeah,
And I
it
think
gives you permission to do your worst things.
exactly like if you have two politicians on stage bashing each other for an hour and a half, you're gonna go and do that to people in the comments. Like it's just I'm hoping for after Trump, there's a return to normalcy.
Hey, Jimmy, can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah,
There, that you said debates. I honestly think the JD Vance Tim Walz VP debate was a great debate.
Miles better than the presidential debate.
Well, absolutely, when they said, I think we agree on this, and I don't like Tim Walz personally. I mean, that guy just he's a little bit out there for me, and a lot of people are blaming him for Harris losing. But when they were on that stage, it was, I think we can agree on this, you know. And when they would start talking, you're like, wow, they are actually not that far apart, and I think that's where we should maybe unifying is a long shot, but maybe we can start saying we're not that far apart on this, and that could be a bridge to whoever takes office in 8 years. You know, set the bar high and say, yeah, we want to be unified, but if we can get to a point where like, man, we got some common ground here, instead of fuck you, you like Trump, and then it's well, you're an idiot because you like Harris or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's that debate to me. And I was on vacation when I watched that, and I was shocked. I'm glad I stayed up for it because that was a very, very, very good debate, even though it was just VPs. You know. Sorry to interrupt you, Jimmy, but you said
no,
debates,
you're
and I
good.
thought about that.
And
Yeah,
I
no, you're good.
agree with you, James, on the copying thing, right? Like I had a political party sign in my yard, and then I had probably 6 teenage kids, probably my guess 15 to 17. Hell if I know, it was 10 o'clock at night, trying to rip the political sign out of my yard and then scream profanities at me, tell me they were going to come to my house and beat me up and all sorts of other shit. And I'm like, hey, you're all like children.
Have your
And
balls even dropped
B,
yet?
you've got to be hearing this from somewhere. So you're just sitting here threatening me as you walk away, which I think I since learned that stealing a political sign out of someone's yard is a felony, which is wild. But right, it's this. I don't know how to say it other than ballsy, right? It's this crazy ballsy. I'm better than you, and I know it. Instead of, why do you think what you think? Let's have a conversation.
I think a lot of
Agree.
that delves. I think a lot of that is social media too, though, because you get
Oh yeah.
used to, no consequences behind the computer screen.
Well,
When in
Yeah.
real life,
and and you get put into an echo chamber.
yeah. So while unity is probably off the table for 4 years, it's probably off the table for 20, if we're being honest. I think if we can get back to a place where we have civil discourse by the next cycle, which I mean, technically the cycle started a week ago. Um, I
Fucking
think
crazy.
it is, and honestly, I think we need to shorten that. But I'll
Mm-hmm.
write a blog on that, get that out of my chest, or get that off my chest. Um, but like we need to see our leaders having these conversations. Sitting down and talking, and as much as important as debates are, I think like what Vermont did, you made people comfortable. Let's talk about it. You know, and I think a lot of the problem that we have is, people say, well, 4 years ago nobody talked politics, or 20 years ago nobody you didn't talk about politics. You didn't talk about politics. Well, now we see such it's become a popular topic and it's become so polarizing
Well, and
And
it
that
everybody
does
has
those
a
gain
years
voice.
of
more access.
yeah, but those years of not talking about it, now everybody's talking about it. So people don't know how to handle themselves in those conversations. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
you go from like in your head, you and your neighbor never talk politics, you know? And then, now they put a Trump sign up in their yard and you're like, man, fuck that guy. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but 5 years ago, y'all were having cookouts together. Like y'all are, until last week, y'all were having cookouts together. And that I think it's more than just our political leaders doing that, but it starts with them. And part of me wonders even like if they even want that because fear raises money. Fear gets them money. You run your campaign based on you're essentially 99% of these campaigns are all fear mongering. And I just hope for change in the next 4 years, and Trump has said he wants to unite everybody. Like, the floor is yours, do it.
Yeah.
If one of those candidates got on stage and said, I'm going to unite the country, I don't know how yet, but I'm going to do it, I'd be like, you know what? Okay, you can have my vote. But you got to do it. You got to actually try. And that's kind of where the funkiness is. And you question whether or not they actually want to, because when you're united, everybody's like, hey, this is a problem. Here's what we want to do to solve it. And both people are like, yeah, I think I could come to that agreement. Okay, well, they're already agreeing to it, so why give them my $50? So I'm hoping for change, not only in our political landscape, but in just general. That's what I'm
Very well
hoping.
said.
Very well said. Cody, you go, then I'll go, and then we're
And you
done.
can go first.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Jeez. All right. Well, all right. So here's what I see. I see a complete cannibalistic shit show in the Democratic Party. I do think that this is a look in the mirror moment for them. I think that they are going to put a lot of effort into restructuring a message, and they're going to utilize that new technique to attack the midterms. I think a lot of shit's going to get done in terms of policy in the next 2 years when you have a supermajority. I mean, without diving into the economics of it, I mean, you're going to get tariffs, you're going to have imports affected, you're going to have various changes occur there. I do believe that there will be an immediate roundup of immigration cycles. How long that lasts, what I don't know is if it's going to be a truly expansive situation or if it's going to be a couple of high profile raids to say, hey, we did it, and then the corporations are going to come in and say, listen, dude, like, we're losing a bunch of cheap labor, why don't you fucking stop? No, that's here nor there. All in all, big picture though, I don't think that there will be a huge shift in the political landscape. I don't think that this is the falling of Olympus. I've said that a couple times on this podcast. I don't think that it's a windfall for Republicans the way that they think it is. I just see that in the polling. I think that they need to do a better job of, like, what's the word I want to use? I think that their baseline candidates need to do a better job of being down to earth as well, and not just calling everybody leftists and communists. It's the same on both sides. Actual, like, Trump style candidates don't do well. It's really crazy because Trump does great, and then Trump style candidates in local elections they perform terribly. Kerry Lake, terrible. Various other reps, terrible. The Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world actually don't do well, except for, like, in that in that tiny microcosm of the environment. So I don't think we're going to see any sort of extreme shift to the right. I don't think we're going to become a dictatorship like people say. It's just not going to happen.
That's refreshing to hear that, dude. Like, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
that's like the whole mainstream media. Now they're not saying it because they want to pretend like they've been playing, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole fascist dictatorship, and then another piggyback. Can Trump be that transitional president to the next Republican in line? I just thought of that. Like, he's yes, he is a lot about getting himself elected and doing what he wants. Um, but will he pass the reins to, kind of like the Obamas still kind of control the
The Democratic
Democratic Party
Party.
a little bit?
Yep.
They have a big voice. Is Trump going to be that guy, or is he going to go back to Mar-a-Lago, play golf, and be out of politics? I just thought of that. Like when you were talking about shifting the party,
Yeah.
the Democratic Party. So I'm sorry to interrupt so much,
No,
but
it's good.
my mind is like just running. So
Yeah. And but to piggyback off of what he just said, I mean, I don't see Trump doing that. I mean, the various times that he's attempted to back candidates, they didn't do well, and so
Yep.
I think the Republican Party as a whole is going to tell him to kind of go in the way of the retirement route and just kind of when they need him, they'll use him. Maybe on the presidential trail they could use him, but as far as bolstering the Republicans' influence in Congress, I don't think they're going to use him for that route. It's not what he's made for. He doesn't do well on a micro scale. He's a macro candidate, and so I just think it's going to be in essence more of the same old politics that we've all lived through for the past 30 years. A little shift to the right. We'll probably have some weird things that we don't necessarily agree with. I don't see a nationwide abortion ban happening. I don't.
He's already said he's not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see he was already walking it back when they asked him about the Florida vote, so I could tell that he wasn't going to push that. I pray that he doesn't defund the Department of Education. I'm going to use my soapbox for a second to just point out the Department of Education does not determine any sort of academic standards. All they do is determine funding allocations for school districts that report themselves as at risk that the state has declared that they are unable to assist in funding. So, for example, if your school district is short funding, then they reach out to their state's Department of Education. The State Department of Education looks at the allocation of funds for that year to determine if they are within the budgets. If they are not able to reach the threshold that the school needs to maintain their budget, then they reach out to the Federal Department of Education, who then allocates additional funds to allow that school district to reach what they need to get through the next 6 months or whatever it is. So for that reason, I really hope that when it comes to efficiency and cost cuttings, we turn our sights onto the Department of Defense because they lost $1 trillion and they don't know anything about it. Now, I am not saying that America should not have defense. I'm just saying that America needs to maybe stop buying $38 hammers and buy the $8 hammer. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and I also think that department has to be significantly more accountable because they haven't passed an audit in my entire lifetime, and yet somehow they always get an increased budget.
Yeah, they've been
where
given,
in every other circumstance, if you don't pass an audit, you lose money, you
Yeah.
lose funding, you lose support.
Right. They've been given carte blanche since 9/11, and I understand why it initially happened, but it's time to start reining in some of that stuff. So that's my hope. I do think there will be a significant cut in government spending, which I'm all about. Woohoo! If we can make the government spending efficient, then I believe that progressive policies can be pushed through. So I'm all for that. If I have to step on a nail and see a couple of things that I might not think should go, but at the end of the day, it allocates funds to maybe expand Medicare, Medicaid, expand federal student grants, like those kind of things, that I'm all for it. So I do think there'll be a massive cut in government spending. I do think that there will be a shift in the midterms. That just tends to happen. I think the midterms the House will flip again. The Senate there's no way, not with losing 3 seats, but the House will probably flip again, so then we'll be in gridlock for the last 2 years, per usual. But yeah, so that's what I see. It's just a bunch of big things up front, like he promised to do, that he can do from the executive branch aspect. A little bit of movement from the legislative branch, and then a big stalemate for the last 2 years. Cody, the floor is yours.
I mean, I agree with you. I think we'll see large things up front, right? While he says crazy shit, I don't think he's completely idiotic to not follow through on things. I think we'll see some large scale stuff. I think, yeah, you're right. it'll likely be gridlocked for the last 2 years, which sounds like the story of my fucking life. I feel like every 6 weeks I'm reading about a pending government shutdown. My hope is similar with yours. Is I hope he doesn't do anything to the Department of Education because it really benefits a lot of folks. I think there would also be mass hysteria if that just ceased to function because they also deal with student loans. And
No, that part can go away.
right. Under the assumption that they're not going to expect us all to pay it back right away. Because I don't have 6 figures in money just sitting in a bank account. So I think, right, there's very valuable things that are done there. And I think it's worth examining, okay, how do we make this more efficient? How do we make it more effective? How do we improve the Department of Education so there's less chaotic bullshit on the back end? And I really hope we do look at the defense spending budget because I'm not saying we don't need military resources. I'm just saying to outspend the next 22 countries on the list by a fucking substantial amount is crazy. I don't know what I hope for other than that. I hope human rights for anyone isn't affected. I hope for the 4 years after we get quality candidates that can have civil discourse. I think nothing perturbs me in a debate as much as people just yelling at each other like fucking 8-year-olds. I have an 8-year-old, and I have been called plenty of names in my time as a parent. That should never be appropriate for that high of a position. And I think we as a country should hold our leaders to a higher standard than that.
Yeah.
All right, so before we go, let's take this out on a happy, fun note.
I love that.
I'm going to give you 3 numbers. You're going to tell me over under. We'll go around the circle.
Okay.
I'm going to put impeachments at 1.5, government shutdowns at 2.5, and Trump calling somebody something super offensive on Twitter at 12.5.
I'm going to take the over on the last one.
Yep, that's fair.
I'm
taking
going
the over there too.
I'm going under, over.
You were cutting out on the first 2 on my end. What was the first 2? I heard the last one.
Impeachments were 1.5,
Okay.
and government shutdowns were 2.5.
And in 4 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think I'm inclined to agree with Travis. Under, over.
Yeah. I think under impeachments because it depends how the midterms turn out. So that could be a wild card. Yeah, over on the last one because sometimes you just can't shut the fuck up. And then that second one, man, you had to throw that in there. I'll take the under.
Just
you guys are going just to be different. I can't be a sheep and follow you guys. I gotta stand out a little bit here.
I mean, I hope that you're right on the under, if I'm being honest.
I really hope so too, because then I'm gonna look back on this podcast and be like, man, that was a terrible debut. But hey,
I mean, I hope that you're right because it means they actually efficiently fucking did something, which is wild. What about you, James?
I'm gonna go under. You know what? Give me under on all of them.
Ooh,
yeah,
man.
An optimist.
I'm not.
I
putting
thought I
money
was
on it.
up. No, yeah. I mean, if this was FanDuel, I'd be seriously considering that. What I just said, but
Gotcha.
All right, guys. Well, This was really fun, Jeff. Thank you so very much.
No, thanks for having me, guys. This was I had 3.5 pages of notes and numbers and stuff, and I was kind of stressing a little bit, but I mean, I knew it was going to be civil, but I wanted to be ready, and
Yeah.
we hit on a lot of things, and yeah, I mean, I'll come back if you ever want me to come back. I had a good time, and
I was just going to say, I'm sure we'll have you back on. You're officially a friend of the pod.
appreciate that, and hopefully, I get some of my people to come over and listen and follow and encourage more conversation. I have just quick story. I have a friend in Pennsylvania that came from New York, and he's in the middle. He didn't know he was going to vote for. I don't know who he voted for, but I encouraged him to listen to. I didn't know you guys' podcast at the time, but don't just listen to me. He watched my videos, and I was like, dude, you got to listen to everybody else because I can tell you to vote Trump all day, but at the end of the day, it's what you got to pick. And this is what me coming on this podcast is for. And I know the election's over, but we're at a point now where we've all been talking about unifying and listening to your guys' thoughts and you guys actually listening is really cool. I usually just sit and talk to a camera all day, and not all day, but when I do my show and nobody talks back, and hearing you guys' opinions and stuff and being on here is really awesome. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're glad to have you, man.
Okay.
All right, gents. Well, that's it for us. Have a great night, and we'll catch you next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Yep.